Hey everybody, I'm Dev, and I might as well be directing the next Star Wars movie. I mean, it feels like Disney and Lucasfilm are just burning through every director in Hollywood right now. So why not give a humble YouTube host a shot? I've even got my own theory why Star Wars is losing its directors. With Colin Trevorrow getting the boot, that makes 4 directors who have either quit, been fired, or otherwise stepped away from the Star Wars saga. This is a little concerning. Ever since Disney bought the franchise, the producers behind Star Wars have kept their directors on a tight leash.
I own all this shit now! I own the Death Star! I own Tatooine! It's all mine!
It's a far cry from the days of auteur directors calling the shots. In fact, it feels more like how TV shows are made. And with a hugely profitable series like Star Wars, that kind of makes sense.
I expect to be well paid. I'm in it for the money.
Let's get to the distinction between directors and producers. During the early days of cinema, movies were made under the studio system. Massive studios like Warner Brothers, MGM, and RKO only used their own contracted staff to make movies. The studios basically owned their talent, from actors to writers and even directors. And just like Lucasfilm today, they had no problem getting rid of directors who didn't toe the company line. For example, the final cut of Gone with the Wind is a mishmash of 3 different directors.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
And Wizard of Oz went through 4 before it was all said and done. But by the late 60s, the studios had lost sight of what audiences were looking for. And after the success of movies like Bonnie and Clyde and The Graduate,
Mrs. Robinson, you're trying to seduce me.
studios were willing to give more artistic control to innovative new filmmakers. The new Hollywood era was the beginning of directors being seen as the authors of the final film.
Why don't you get a haircut?
They more or less owned the movie the way a novelist owns their book. Think about this. Do you consider Alien a Dan O'Bannon film or a Ridley Scott film? Now, producers still play a major role. There's a reason they get handed the Best Picture Oscar. They put up the money for the film, and they're responsible for making sure it gets completed and that it makes a profit.
Yeah, but this time I've got the money.
Now, producers clashing with directors is part of Hollywood lore. That's how we got that crappy narration in Blade Runner.
They don't advertise for killers in a newspaper. That was my profession, ex-Blade Runner.
But film directors, especially well-known ones, still have a lot of power. They can fight for their vision, and a lot of times they win. In TV, it's a different story. If a movie is a meal, the director is the chef that cooks it from the screenwriter's recipe, and the person who owns the restaurant is the producer.
$3. What? No soup for you.
But the balance of power is a lot different when you have to make a new meal every single week. Let's talk about TV. Every episode of scripted TV is like its own mini-movie with a rotating staff of writers, crew, and directors. Suddenly, the producer becomes way more important. In TV, that role is filled by the showrunner. They're not exactly the same as a Hollywood producer, but the responsibilities are similar. From Vince Gilligan's Breaking Bad to Matthew Weiner's Mad Men, in the golden age of television, the showrunner is the star. And the director kinda takes a back seat. Let's look at Game of Thrones for an example. Don't get me wrong, it's one of the best directed shows on TV thanks to incredible talent like Michelle MacLaren and Alan Taylor. But at the end of the day, I'm putting all the blame on the rushed storytelling and that Ed Sheeran cameo on Benioff and Weiss.
It's a pretty song. I've never heard it before.
It's a new one.
A chord of gold. They're the ones in charge, and it's up to the showrunner to deliver a consistent quality episode each and every week. In TV, the director's kinda just a hired gun, and it seems like cinematic universes are being run the same way. I wanna touch on Marvel for a second. As president of Marvel Studios, Kevin Feige is basically the showrunner of the MCU, and so far he's been pretty cool about letting different directors express themselves within his sandbox. Feige didn't pick an established action guy to kick off his new cinematic universe. Before Iron Man, Jon Favreau's biggest hit was Elf.
You did it! Congratulations!
And since then, Marvel Studios has trusted their brand with some pretty eclectic talent. Whether it's a trauma veteran like James Gunn or comedy guys like the Russo brothers, whose biggest claim to fame was directing the pilot of Arrested Development.
This is the magic trick, huh?
Illusion, Michael. Trick is something a whore does for money.
Now, even if Feige is relatively hands-off, everything hasn't been perfect. Edgar Wright left Ant-Man over creative differences with the studio, and Joss Whedon got so frustrated that he actually fled to DC after Age of Ultron. But Disney is having a much bigger problem with this other major franchise. Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy is the Kevin Feige of the Star Wars franchise. She was already a powerhouse producer on films like E.T. and Jurassic Park when George Lucas passed the torch. After JJ Abrams kicked off the rebirth of Star Wars, she hired young directors with a lot of buzz but not much on their resume. And so far, only Rian Johnson seems to be working out. The first to go was Josh Trank. After his debut film Chronicle, he signed on to do a Boba Fett spinoff.
Boba Fett? Where?
But first, he made the disastrous Fantastic Four.
I promise you I'm going to fix this.
I stopped believing in your bullshit a long time ago.
After heavy reshoots and alleged unprofessional behavior on set, Lucasfilm wanted nothing to do with him, so he resigned. But what about Gareth Edwards? He made a pretty decent Godzilla movie, but Lucasfilm was not happy with how Rogue One was turning out.
Be careful not to choke on your aspirations, director.
Just 6 months before the movie was released, they allegedly pushed him aside. They paid director Tony Gilroy $5 million to oversee heavy reshoots, and it totally shows. You can almost edit a whole movie out of the stuff that was only in the trailer. Sources say up to 40% of the film was reshot, including that awesome Darth Vader scene. We still don't know for sure what each director contributed to it, but that's almost beside the point. All that matters is that the producers weren't happy and they were willing to drop some serious bank on a ringer to spice it up. Now, Lord and Miller were straight up fired from Han Solo. They became famous for clever comedies like the Lego Movie and 21 Jump Street, so I'm not sure what Kennedy was expecting in the first place. Longtime Star Wars writer Lawrence Kasdan butted heads with the two over their comedic tone and improv style.
No, you're not figuring my mouth?
I'm doing it. Let's go. Come on. Come on. Come on.
Kennedy took his side and replaced him with the bland but dependable Ron Howard.
Well, besides, I happen to know more about this than you do. Is that so?
And now the news just broke that 2 weeks ago, Colin Trevorrow has stepped down from episode 9. The official line is that visions for the project differ between him and Lucasfilm. In reality, it probably has more to do with the fact that the Book of Henry was a complete turd. It made like $4 million worldwide. And the rumors that he's a difficult diva probably don't help. So they brought JJ Abrams back on board, and it makes sense. He's already proven he can work within the franchise without being too much of a headache. It's not the most innovative or exciting pick in the world, and that's okay. That's because a producer's job isn't just to tell stories or make art. They exist to make certain that a movie they're spending hundreds of millions on turns a profit. And with the cinematic universe, it's up to them to ensure it fits with the rest of the films in the pipeline. Each movie is just one piece of a larger puzzle. Just like a TV showrunner, the producer is responsible for maintaining quality and consistency across the board. Honestly, in the long run, Lucasfilm's director problem likely won't even matter. Think about this. Did you see The Force Awakens because it was a new JJ Abrams film, or did Star Wars put your ass in the seat? Don't get me wrong, he made an incredible movie, but these days, most blockbusters aren't about the directors. They're about the brand. Hey guys, I'm Dev. Thank you so much for watching this video. How do you guys feel about JJ coming back? Were you hoping for someone different, or are you happy the guy's coming back to put the Force to sleep? Let us know in the comments below, and please subscribe to Now This Nerd. Thank you.